joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot, Thursday and ready with some hot and ready pizza for you all NFL season long. Head on over to your nearest Little Caesars, get yourself a nice hot and ready Little Caesars pizza. We have quite a bit to talk about today. We're doing one of our state of the team, state of the union, whatever you want to call it. We've each picked a team that we're going to talk about, and I picked the Broncos, Theo picked the Raiders, and Matt picked the Colts. Just a couple teams that have gone through some trials and tribulations this year, but honestly aren't sitting in a horrible spot right now. So we thought we'd give them a little bit of love, a little bit of conversation. But before we get into that, decent amount, or not necessarily decent amount, but substantial NFL news. The Bills fired their offensive coordinator, first off, and the Browns have announced this morning that Deshaun Watson will miss the remainder of the season after undergoing shoulder surgery.
Let's start with Dorsey and the Bills situation.
Yeah.
I think it's a super fascinating one because there's a very, very strong argument to be made that the Bills offense has been one of the better offenses in the league so far this year. When you look at a lot of the metrics, third in DVOA, first in overall success rate to this point in the season. It hasn't been like, even in just terms of points per game where they're a little bit lower, they're still top 10 there. And their passing offense, like Allen's numbers, are still, I mean, we can hold him to a standard and talk about the picks in a second. But you look at the yards and the QBR and a lot of the metrics, he's up there too with anybody. So to fire the offensive coordinator at this point is something that you're ignoring all of that, essentially, just for the turnovers.
Right.
And it's, to me, I don't know about it. I'm willing to hear him out, but I don't know if it's what I would have done. I don't know if it's the time. I think that a lot of luck goes into stuff like this, variation. I don't know. What do you guys think? I have more to say, but
it's definitely a little puzzling. It caught me by surprise. I know the offense doesn't appear to be as lights out as you might expect it to be, but I think what mostly confuses me is I look at how that game, the most recent game, went against the Broncos, who we'll talk about today, of course. But I mean, it started out with, a running back fumbles the ball on their first play, and then they have a Gabe Davis drop that gets intercepted, and he was open. Like, this wasn't like a bad play call, bad design, or anything.
Coverage. He ran a good dig route, and
it was all there. So I'm like, they had plenty of looks, plenty of opportunities to win this game. It just felt like more of an execution problem than a play calling problem. And I just don't know how you looked at that game and you're like, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's the catalyst. And I'm like, that's where I'm confused.
I feel like what you got to look at it from Sean McDermott's perspective to make any sense of what the thought process was, because if you look at the numbers, you really can't find anything. Like,
right.
You have to look at the situation in the game tape and just kind of the vibe of game day, honestly, is what you've got to look at. And I think for Sean McDermott, he's the defensive coordinator of the Bills this year and the head coach. I don't think he has spent hardly any time working with the offense. I just don't think it's possible for him as a defensive coordinator to be like involved with offensive game planning, implementing their plans in practice, teaching techniques. Like, he only is one guy. So I feel like as head coach and defensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey is kind of the sole almost head coach of the offense at this point. And everything that happens on that side of the ball, like McDermott doesn't really control what they do. It's all Dorsey. And I feel like, or not Dorsey, Dorsey. Yes, Dorsey. And McDermott, his difficulty level in terms of coaching this season is very high. He's on, Dark Souls mode because Jones,
Everyone's
the defensive
hurt.
tackle, got hurt, and Milano got hurt, and Trey White got hurt. So he is like trying to hold it together and coach a defense that is really crippled. The offense doesn't have any such excuses because Diggs is healthy, Allen is healthy. The first 2 picks in the draft, Kincaid and Osiris Torrance, are both offensive players who are both healthy. Gabe Davis is healthy. Really, the only guy I can think of who's not healthy is Dawson Knox. And it's been the offense that has been putting the defense in bad situations with turnovers and giving them a short field to defend and making these execution errors, like not being able to hand the ball off correctly. Like, ball security has been really bad. Like last week, Dalton Kincaid fumbled. That's not just like an unlucky break, really.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid like hurdled someone and had the ball in one hand, like loose. You got to be like, what are you doing, dude? Like that's bad ball security. What do you guys work on at practice to make all these bad mistakes when the defense like really needs you guys to not do these things? Like you have one job, and this should be the best version of the Bills offense that we've seen. Really, like, yeah, right. Like they've got Kincaid and Davis is still there and Diggs is still there. Like they haven't really lost anybody that's been important since 2020, really. And I think that it's just been a major disappointment despite the stats. And I think that McDermott is doing all he can. And from his vantage point, it just must seem like, the offense isn't as well coached as the defense is right now. And it's like the offense should be carrying us and they're not. And maybe he doesn't like Dorsey. Like there could be some things behind the scene, like his leadership style. Maybe he thinks there isn't enough accountability. Maybe he thinks Allen, like he can't bench. Maybe he thinks it's all on Allen, but you can't bench Allen. You can't cut Allen. So it's like, how do we hold Allen accountable? Fire his offensive coordinator. Like there are consequences to your actions. Seriously, like Dorsey's really the only guy you can hold accountable. So I feel like that's kind of the dynamics at play here.
I think firing Dorsey to send Josh Allen a message is an interesting one. I guess here's my question for you then. Like the Bills turn the ball over a lot. Certainly like the fumbles and last game are just, dang it, don't do that. But why do they turn the ball over so consistently?
I don't know. First of all, Allen, it just kind of
he's just silly.
Lends itself to his
he trolls
style
way
of
too
play.
much. And if Dorsey not being able to get Allen's trolling under wraps is a killer.
And I don't even think Allen has done an insane amount of trolling this year. And this is where I come down on it's a little bit unfair. I think that like I can see why McDermott maybe did what he did, but I do think it's a bit unfair because Allen has his career low in turnover worthy play rate right now. And you look at last week, like the fumbles, like the first fumble's not his fault. The first pick isn't his fault. The dropped handoff was probably his fault to some extent, and the second pick was his fault. But overall, it has been a lot of unlucky stuff this year. He's always been turnover prone. Like he threw 15 under Dable, I think. It's not like he was at some point not turnover prone and now he is regressed or now he's, this is a career worst type of season for him, like in that area. Like it's really not. And right now there have been more big plays than turnovers. And it's like, I don't know, dude, you're already stretched pretty thin in terms of bodies in the coaching staff. Like firing another big piece of that so you don't have an offensive coordinator or defense. I mean, obviously they have an offensive coordinator. Joe Brady's the interim, but still, like going into it, you thought you were going to have Leslie Frazier and Ken Dorsey. Now you don't have any of those guys. Like, I just don't know if it's going to be the type of move that fixes these mistakes unless everybody just like locks in right now because they're capable of doing good. Like these players have put up damn near 30 points a game over the course of the season, so.
It does feel like bad timing. Like McDermott already has a lot on his plate. And even though, like, you're right, they have an interim offensive coordinator, you're still going to end up taking on more responsibility.
I don't think he
coach.
is. I
don't think
that
so?
I think he can't. Like, I don't know how he can.
He's not going to be like
I guess
calling.
I don't know.
He's not going to be like calling plays, but like,
I guess I don't know the work, and I don't know what's going on in Buffalo, but I just feel like he, as defensive coordinator, probably, and I guess he's head coach as well, but I think he wants the offense to just kind of be its own thing. And he talked today about, what did he say? He said he wants the offense to establish a subculture as part of the team's overall culture, is what he said today. And I feel like that's just like, the offense is its own thing. Like, I want the offense to have its own culture that fits into my kind of overall culture. Like, I just think like he's kind of very hands off
there.
And I think he just wants an offensive coordinator that he can just not worry about.
Maybe he feels like he was babysitting.
Like,
maybe he feels like he was babysitting Dorsey a little bit.
I think he feels like maybe Dorsey needed babysitting, because I don't know if Dorsey, and again, this is all very reckless speculation, but again, like or maybe Allen needs babysitting, and McDermott was like, all right, I'm not going to be there to oversee everything. Like, I'm a defensive coordinator, guys. Like, you guys are your own thing, and we'll see what it looks like on Sundays. And then on Sundays, he sees what the offense has been working on, and he is like, this is shitty. This is not what we're looking for. It's not, there's no identity in running. There's a lot of turnovers. And I just feel like that frustrated him, and he just wants like a normal offense but it's like with Allen, I don't know if you can get a normal offense. Right. So that's why I think it's kind of unfair to Dorsey. But I'm trying to like just work out the logic of why it happened in the first place. And that's,
I think it was wrong.
My mind is at.
I think at the minimum, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's a year and a half in. You can't let year two play out. I mean, what does he feel like is going to upgrade? It's
pretty savage. Yeah.
It's pretty, I feel like you almost never see that. An offensive coordinator gone after year and a half is pretty rare. I guess we see sometimes where 1 year and it's done, but mid-season coordinator firing is not all that common. And I mean, I know it's a worthless comparison. It's like, dude, how did he get fired? Matt Canada, with all his drama still.
No, seriously. I mean, usually to fire someone in the middle of the season, the results have to be pretty bad.
It's got to be like an Urban situation or some shit, dude. It's got to be
not first in success rate. Like they have more successful plays than anybody else. It's just their bad plays are quite bad. When they
I get how you could get sick of that at a point, and it's like you can't put up with that forever, certainly. But like, damn, man, 10 games into the season, you can't. I feel like you earn a little bit more of a ride out with maybe some of the fumbling luck to turn around or whatever.
Yeah, I just don't think that McDermott cares about any advanced analytics or fumbling luck. I think he's just like, I'm working with a banged up defense. Do not give them a short field. Like, please, for the sake of the defense, no dumb mistakes that forces them to, and then they just keep happening. And then he's like, that's unacceptable. Like, I don't think he cares about success rate or EPA or luck. And I think he probably should, like, I feel like those are good metrics. And he's kind of focusing on one really bad aspect of it. In terms of Dorsey's offense, I feel like Bills fans are happy that he's gone, but a lot of the allegations they levy against him, like, they just, all the play calling is horrible. Like, they never give their playmakers the ball or whatever. It's like, I watch the offense, and yes, they don't run it a lot, but neither do the Chiefs, neither do the Bengals. Like, neither do a lot of top teams across the league who have great quarterbacks. Like, you probably want them to be on the higher end of the run-pass ratio, and that's where they are, and I think that's fine. I don't think Diggs is being, like, misused. He's putting up, like, huge numbers this year. Like, I don't know. I feel like Kincaid, I mean, what do you want Kincaid to do? He's kind of their slot guy. He's been productive there. I don't know. I feel like in terms of the structure, there's RPOs, there's quick game. Like, he can't control Josh Allen all the time. I don't think the design of the offense is like, it's not like the Steelers where you just like know they run the same thing over and over again. Well, they do run a lot of power out of shot. That was kind of their thing against the Broncos, is they went on that one drive where they just ran it over and over again. It was kind of the same play. They just ran like a pulling guard out of gun and ran behind him. But it worked over and over again. So it's like, what's the problem? And overall, that was like a pretty good rushing performance from them in that game. So I feel like it's a bit, I think it's a short-term like jolt to the offense, really, I think is the point of this move. And just like, you guys really need to lock in. There's the interim coach effect is real. And I think that this is just almost trying to get the benefits of the mentality change, honestly, of like, we need to do a better job, or more of us are getting fired. Like, maybe that's the mentality. I don't know.
Possibly. You know, the lack of involvement in the offense is a little bit Rivera-esque, you know, and the sense of that he was very much the same way, and then how they treated the offensive coordination in Carolina, and that's been a big Carolina thing for a long time. So I guess McDermott being sort of similar is not a huge surprise.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird.
History will judge if they were right to do it or not. I personally believe that it will probably just end up looking mostly the same, and the Bills will probably not win anything this year regardless. That's probably my bet. But maybe Allen will say, okay, enough is enough. I'm taking care of the football better from here on out. Who knows?
Maybe. I think, it'll be easier to judge when we see who they bring in.
Well, right now it's former Panther Joe Brady.
Right.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you much about how his scheme will differ from Dorsey's. I honestly think it'll probably look the same. Like I said, I think they'll probably still be on the high end of passing. Like, I guess they don't use much motion. I don't think they're going to bring in any kind of McDaniels offense in the middle of the season. So it's like, you're probably seeing a lot of the same shit from the Bills going forward, because I don't think the buttons they were pushing were necessarily the wrong plays or ideas. It's just like the execution of them was
hard to judge what Joe Brady will look like as an offensive coordinator when last time he had the reins, it was Kyle Allen.
Yeah.
Going from that to Josh Allen is slightly different.
Was he the play caller in Carolina too, or was that always Rule? Do you remember?
I can't rightfully remember. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
Don't the Bills have Kyle Allen?
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah, they do. Oh, man, I forgot about that.
Yes, they do.
Oh, man. Hasn't played it all this year, but
nope.
He got some things going with Bridgewater and those receivers. I'll give him that. All things considered, he was good at getting some fellas involved.
All right.
But these Panthers teams, they're in his step.
What a disaster year for the Bills overall, though. To be 5-5 at this point.
Who could have seen this coming?
I walked back on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's happened. Like you couldn't have expected like the defense to be just completely shredded with injuries.
Well, they are.
I think
old.
that makes. Yeah, you did say they are an old defense.
But like Milano getting hurt, it's like,
come on, like what are you supposed to do?
And Trey looked good when he was in this year. Like he didn't even like last year when he was in, he really struggled. This year, he was pretty successful. So, like I was more worried about him not rebounding than him getting injured again, and that didn't even really happen. So. They were a top team in the league until about 4 weeks ago. they were the top team in the league to such an extent that they're still top 10 in all these metrics, despite the slide recently. So they were off to such a strong start and just totally off the rails.
It's unreal.
You want to get into the Browns news?
I guess it'll be my one chance to talk about Cleveland this episode. Watson,
You'll find
out
another.
I'll try my best. Watson out for the season, getting surgery done. DTR is the starter this week. I agree with that. I think he should be the starter this week.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, you traded Josh Dobbs away because of what he did in the preseason. I feel like
How
you can't.
bad does that look now? Jesus.
I mean, sure.
The DTR was horrifyingly bad.
He was, but
He was probably the single worst quarterback performance this year.
What game did he
Yes.
start?
I can't even.
it was.
It wasn't
against-
against the Niners, was it?
No, it was not against the Niners.
I
was
mean, he
week one.
was throwing just completely ridiculous.
I'm trying to look at his EPA in that game.
It's
Was it the Week 4 Baltimore game?
I think it could have been, yeah.
wouldn't shock me.
Let's see.
I think yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
The numbers aren't good.
No,
No,
36
they're not.
passes for 120 yards and 3 picks is bad.
Minus 0.58 EPA per play, a success rate of 33%. Minus 26 EPA in the entire game. And for those numbers, estimated points added means how many, like, let's say you're on the 50-yard line and it's a 49-yard pass. That's not worth any points, but realistically, it's worth like 6.8 because you're probably getting 7 because of that pass, So it's like trying to figure out how many points you contributed. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, minus 26.2 estimated points added.
Wait. Not minus 0.26.
No, minus
26.
26.2. 0.6 every
Oh
time
my
he
God.
dropped back. So every time he dropped back, the Browns were essentially losing half a point. And overall, over the course of the game, the stats attributed him with like almost 4 touchdowns worth of
That's
points off the
horrible.
board.
I didn't realize the EPA was that low.
It was it's not a good
but
performance.
My take on that is still, I think there were a lot of nerves because I saw the ball leave his hand differently than it did in those preseason games. And like we can talk, I think we can talk about like how good the reads are and whatnot, and that changes with the speed of the game. But just the way the ball leaves your hand differently, like
You're saying he was throwing different.
Maybe you can grip the ball too tight because you're nervous.
Yeah, I think he was just
don't know.
nervous, and it just
Yeah, I mean, that's
the
gotta be
ball
it.
wobbled.
No, that
there
really
were
has
like
to be
3
it.
passes that got picked off. There were or
and they
almost
weren't his
picked
fault.
off.
He was just nervous.
No, they were his fault. They were bad passes.
Now, with the
But I'm
playoffs on the
saying-
line, he will be steely.
Oh yeah, because but my boy was like PJ Walker isn't good.
Dude.
Right? And like there is no scenario in which you put PJ Walker in and you're like, all right, we're gonna have a positive offense. I think there is a world where you could
man.
get a positive offensive output out of DTR.
No. I think there's no. I mean, he played awfully against the Ravens.
It was
He
his
did.
first start against a top defense. He can play better
Yeah.
than that.
He can.
It's not over in Cleveland because their defense is so good, and they're already at like a good point.
And they have a
in
very
their
favorable schedule.
record,
all
and their
things
schedule
considered.
is good. So I think like it's not over in terms of making the playoffs, but my thoughts on DTR is just when I watched him at UCLA, there was he had a big arm, he could move around a little bit. He actually made some pretty good reads. My big concern with him was just how he throws the football, honestly. Like there's so much lean with it, and like his mechanics can be so bad, and he can
that showed in the Baltimore game.
and his placement can just be awful. And yeah, that's all that we saw in the Baltimore game was just.
But it looked better in the preseason.
So it looked better in the preseason for fucking everybody, dude. Who is awesome in the preseason? Bryce Young, he had a great preseason performance. Stroud didn't look so great in the preseason. You know, like
Yeah, but
everything is different now.
it is different, but like
The Packers offensive line didn't allow a hit on Jordan Love all preseason. They looked like the second coming of like the 2014
that's different. That's
Cowboys.
different.
How is it different?
All we're talking about is like mechanically how he's throwing the football. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not talking about how he's dealing with pressure. I'm talking about like a single aspect of the game that he can control, which is mechanically how he's throwing the ball.
But he's bad at mechanically.
But he was good in the preseason.
No, he wasn't. He was making plays. Like mechanically, there was still plenty of issues to like look at DTR. And like there would be unfair because he's a rookie in the preseason and like was overall doing a good job. But it's not like he has good mechanics because of the preseason. I don't know about that. If he comes in and looks good in the back half of the regular season here, I mean, it's because he got better, but I mean, you saw it in the Baltimore game. Like he's not good yet.
He looked horrible in the Baltimore game. I have more faith that DTR can be serviceable than that PJ Walker is going to magically become a plus starter overnight. So I'm willing to give DTR this shot now.
I think you do have to give him the shot. I don't know if he's going to be better than PJ Walker, though.
I don't know if he will either.
We might see
but
PJ Walker.
I think it's worth a chance. I think it's worth the chance.
I agree with that. I agree. It's the first game against a really great team, maybe the best in the whole league, and the Ravens shouldn't be the last chance you ever get in your career. Yes. And you drafted him. He did have a good preseason. He won the job over Josh Dobbs. No one was mad at that decision. Now it looks so bad, but everyone loved DTR at the time. Like, so yeah, like it happened and you got to live with it. And I do believe that you have to see what he's got more than just that game. So I agree.
And yet he's still got more of a chance than Matt Corral. This is
crazy.
Get more of
Time to bring him in. Blaiden. That would be so huge.
I will make some calls. The Browns, Andrew Berry did say they're looking to bring in a third QB.
Hey.
It's going to be Flacco.
It's going to be.
Stop.
At any point, you can bring in Kaepernick and Greg Roman. They're both out on the streets.
Oh, my God.
You guys missed the Wentz train. That's one that will be regretted for years.
Oh, yeah.
Bring back the 2013 Niners offense and reunite Cap and Roman for the playoff push.
This will make us the best offense of all time. And we already have the top run rate in the NFL. Might as well.
Yeah, the Browns are in the best position of any team to withstand an injury to their starter because they are quite a good team already, despite bad quarterback play. So, like,
yes,
we'll just see how bad the quarterback play can get. But they are,
as typically it is with the Cleveland Browns.
As typically,
and as good as Watson was in that second half, I still don't think that was like overall a great game from Deshaun Watson. How about that for a hot take? Because he was rough in the first half, like really rough in the first half. So like a good second half makes it like
the game off, man. It was ugly.
Makes it like an average game. People are acting like that second half was like proof that he's amazing now. It's like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah,
he was good in the second half. He's perfect in the second half, but like overall this year, like it's pretty tough to make the case that he was a impactful positive for the offense.
I would have to agree, but they haven't really had any quarterback be an impactful positive since 2020 Baker or 2021 Baker.
Yeah.
So, or I guess 2019, 2020, not 2020, 2021. But yeah, the Browns should be fine, I think, to make the playoffs. This game against Pittsburgh will be huge because they've already lost to them once. So this is almost kind of like a pre-playoff game. Because if you lose this
is a pre-playoff game.
You lose this one, it could be pretty difficult to get in over Houston, who's been playing well. And
And if the
there's a
Steelers
couple others.
are 7-3 and you've lost twice to them,
it would be a tough ask.
I got the Steelers.
Oh no, I'm not gonna lock the Browns this week, but I do think they can get it done.
Yeah, it's a real toss up. They're not in the worst position, and they're in as good of a position as any team to make it with a bad quarterback. But making it with a bad quarterback is tough, when you play in the toughest division as well. Like, I could see it going either way. It's probably more likely in this division that they get passed by the Bengals at some point. The Ravens stay ahead of them, and it's like,
if you don't beat Pittsburgh here, they hold a pretty big advantage over you.
And you're right that Houston is probably gonna keep winning games down the stretch the way they.
Houston's knocking on the door, or no, they're in right now over Cincinnati. I mean, some of the teams we'll talk about today, the Raiders, they're knocking on the door. The Broncos, they're starting to get hot. They've won 3 straight.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough.
It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a dogfight. They're equipped. They're better than the Raiders and Broncos probably even. Well, Broncos, I don't know. I guess we'll talk about it.
We will. But before we get into those teams, I want to get into the Under Armour NBA game changer of the week. Matt, I think you had a guy for us today.
Tyrese Halliburton, who is getting some, he really should be in the MVP conversation takes, and rightfully so. He's not, more valuable than Jokic or anything, but he's leading like what I still think is the number one offense in the NBA on a team where maybe the pieces around him are not, obviously going to push for the number one offense. He's an absolutely fantastic initiator. He moves the ball he's just so efficient. It's like it's not only in the way that he shoots, but in the way that he moves the ball. I think he's had 32 straight assists with no turnover. Completely ridiculous numbers. The way that he operates an offense reminds you of like a Chris Paul type guy, where it's just always making the right play and always reading the defense correctly. And on top of that, he's got it within him to really take over as a scorer. He did against the Hornets. Even though they didn't win that game, it was a 40-point night for him. And he did against the 76ers, a fantastic defense, a really good team, went and closed it out. He's next level right now.
I'm looking at the stats on cleaning the glass, and you're right, Matt. The Pacers are the most efficient offense in the league. They're number 1, ahead of Philadelphia, who's at number 2. Tyrese Halliburton himself, really, really eye-popping numbers. Points per shot attempt, 97th percentile. Assist percentage, 100th percentile.
It's like half. It's like something like half of his assist percentage is nuts.
Yeah, it's 49.4%. So what percentage of his teammates made shots did the player assist on? So yeah, essentially half of the buckets that his teammates are scoring happen because he assisted them. And then in terms of his shooting, he is in the 71st percentile accuracy at the rim, 97th percentile accuracy mid-range, 77th percentile accuracy from 3. So at all 3 levels of scoring, assisting, he's been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he's a really complete player. I think the Pacers are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they have a really, really good shot at it with the team they've built. And they still have some work to do, but they're early in the rebuild. I think they won the Sabonis trade. I mean, and I think I think even with the Kings' success, it's always going to be a little bit bitter. You lost him, and I wonder in 3 years how we feel about that. But I think Halliburton, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't a hot streak. It's a little bit of a hot streak, but like in terms of like him being this level of player, get ready for it. It's going to be this way for a long time, and he might not, put up the crazy point totals that some other guys do, but he is going to be one of the most valuable offensive initiators, most valuable point guards in the NBA for a long time.
He's also in the 100th percentile. He doesn't foul anybody.
Nope.
Just looking at the stats.
He's a super.
He's 100th percentile.
Super clean player, man. He's a super, super sharp dude. He's
So,
nice.
Never turns the ball over, never gets fouled, assists all the time, and is accurate from everywhere.
He's the least frustrating player in the NBA.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. You didn't give Draymond Green the nod for game changer of the...
He changed the game all right. You'll give him that. I mean...
I saw RJ.
Dude, 1 minute into the game, just straight up choking out the.
I don't know. I don't know how
funny,
I feel
man.
about it because I don't like Draymond, but I don't like Gobert either. So I'm like trying to think if it's based to just think of any reason to choke him out immediately.
I saw Richard Jefferson make a TikTok. He was like, "Why'd they kick him out for this, man? I thought he was just."
I know it's such a little ticky tack foul.
He was just de-escalating the situation.
I'm sick of refs deciding games for us, man. No, dude, it's wild, and I mean all that talk about like Draymond gets into a game where Steph's not playing and he tries to get himself ejected because he doesn't want to play. There seems to be some
that's what Gobert said
here.
afterwards.
That's what Gobert said. There was a tweet before the game that some Warriors fan made. He's like, "Yeah, dude, go." Like, he's getting himself ejected immediately. And then I think I was looking up the stats about this earlier, and like 7 of his last 11 ejections were in games that Curry wasn't in. And when you take into account the fact that Curry didn't miss that many games, that's a pretty crazy number. So
that is
more
of Curry's gravity, just even more of Curry's.
He's got to be one of like the best friends in the NBA.
I don't know.
No, he has to be. Think about
maybe
buddies with LeBron, buddies with Curry. He's got it all.
He is loyal to like those 2 guys. The problem is it's like only those 2. And I feel like if you're not one of those 2, he just has to be like the worst to be around. I don't know. I don't like Draymond Green that much. I don't. I think that he.
Well, now you're on Draymond Green's list.
I am on Draymond Green's list. But I'm not sold on that take. Someone could maybe sell me on the Draymond is good for the league agenda.
What about all the old heads that say the NBA is too soft now? I mean, Draymond keeps it at a level of physicality.
He does. Well, he does. I just think like choking people out and like punching Poole is just like not like cool or funny, really. Like, well, choking out Gobert might be, but punching Poole.
Bro, hate Gobert. That's crazy.
Type of physical. Maybe I can use that to push like this era's more physical. Jordan would never survive narratives. Do you think I could pull that off?
I don't think you could.
I think I could.
Because Jordan wouldn't have been friends with Draymond Green, so he would have gotten the dog shit kicked out of him.
Unfortunately, Gobert is playing crazy and played a crazy game versus the Timberwolves. That block at the end on the corner 3. Where he anticipated the Chris Paul pass to the corner and got a jump on it, knocked it out of the air. That was unfortunately pretty sick. It made me sick to my stomach to see Chris Paul being an active negative as a closer down the stretch, just being allergic to like actually going at the basket. Had some good looks that he passed up to pass. I was like, oh no.
It's tough against the Timberwolves for anybody, particularly a 6'39" point guard, man. That's
true. It still hurt my soul a little bit.
He's still doing a good job leading the bench, even though he's not shooting well himself. It's
true. They were playing without Clay, Curry, and Dre against the top defense. So
man, they were there. I was kind of pulling for them. I couldn't believe they were in that game. Sarek, shout out.
Super Dario, baby.
Nice game. And Pods, too, had a really good game.
Who is that white guy with the busted eye? Okay.
Podzimski. Yeah, man. He's got an interesting skill set. They really have something with him. I haven't watched a ton of him because he hasn't played a ton of games. But it seems like he can do a little bit of everything and kind of moves around as a shooter and can attack on ball a little bit and can move the ball a little bit. They've got something there for somebody who I think most of us didn't really have on our radar.
There was a stat that flashed on the screen in this game. He is the only other Warrior to score 20 besides Curry this season.
Yeah. I think that ended up not being true because I think Sarek got to 20. But yeah, man,
game.
Yeah.
So before that game, there hadn't been a single one besides
And of
besides
course,
Curry.
when Curry and Draymond and Clay are all out, somebody's got to put up points. So
Yeah, that's not good.
no, it's not. I just had a conversation about this earlier today on the Nerd Sesh podcast. In fact, and Wiggins has been really rough this year, but yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well.
They're still holding their own at 6-6, about an average team in the league. The Warriors.
They have 6 wins and 6 losses. That's about average.
500.
Holy cow. Wiggins is bad. I'm a box score watcher right now. 0th percentile points per shot attempt, Andrew Wiggins. So there is no one.
You got to
also
understand the context, man.
7th percentile assist ratio compared to his usage. So he's not scoring and he's not creating at all.
He takes a lot of tough jumpers, and they haven't been falling. The Warriors have been shooting bad as a team in general, and it'll get better. They'll be fine, at least to some extent.
Curry is shooting amazing. Oh my God.
Curry is having like his best 3-point shooting season ever as it stands right now.
Yeah.
He's taking like his second most attempts and hitting it like the highest clip or something. And I mean, he's shooting almost like 50% from 3. It's ridiculous.
Continuing my box score tear. Curry, 100th percentile points per shot attempt, 0th percentile assist to usage ratio. So it is all him when he gets the ball. He's a positive force and he's not giving it away. That's
you said almost 50% from 3.
It's pretty close. I think it's like
on
I don't know what the exact
highest.
He's on
45.
Like
he's 45%.
I guess I went down a little bit, but
went down to 45%.
He's been ridiculous.
That's madness.
Anyway,
do you guys want to talk about some football?
Let's talk about these teams, these 5-loss teams smack dab in the middle of everybody's power rankings.
Yeah, we picked these teams. Theo's like, the collection of 5-win teams. Oh, no, the Broncos haven't won their 5th game yet. So we deemed it the 5-loss.
The 5-loss club.
5-loss club.
Steph Curry makes you believe that you can do anything. I mean, look at me. He has me believing that I can shoot threes when I play pickup basketball. And the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate bounce, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generations of ball players are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. This NBA season, rock your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. The Curry 11s are perfect for both the committed and casual ballers. The UA Warp Tech makes the shoe feel like it was designed for your feet, locked in no matter what you do on the court. Stop in your tracks with dual density UA Flow cushioning and traction, an emergency brake that you don't even notice. Steph's 11th signature shoe steps into the second decade of his sneaker career, pulling colorway inspiration from the wonders of a positive and modernized future on and off the court. Take these kicks with you when you leave the scrimmage and rep UA wherever you go. Do your thing. Change the game. The Curry 11 Future Curry is available now at currybrand.com.
Who do we want to start with?
Let's start with the Broncos. We've already talked a little bit about their game against the Bills.
Yeah, and that did
perspective.
That was kind of the more recent matchup relative to where we're recording here. It's when I started taking a look at just after that game to the Dolphins, I was just like, I want to see where Broncos fans' heads were at this point. You go through any live stream, any like Discord, it's all fire Vance Joseph, Vance Joseph. Everyone wanted him gone. And you can kind of see why.
They did allow 70 points.
They did allow 70, but it's just like it feels like they did change a lot of just the defensive identity as opposed to what Fangio was doing. I think schematically it's similar, but you just don't see a lot of island work with Surtain anymore. You don't see just like press on an island, or at least you weren't early on in the year, and especially not in that game. There was a lot of off coverage. and they just got shredded. But I think it changed recently, and
How
since
so?
then they stopped. I think they just stopped putting a roof on everything. And I think they've resorted to, because they were doing, like, early on in the year, I was looking at, they had a pretty high.
I thought against the Bills
man coverage rate.
Yeah, they're definitely mixing in a decent amount of man coverage. Against the Bills, I thought that it was a really balanced defensive attack. Like, there was a lot of different coverage looks that they threw at the Bills, and they are letting Surtain travel around the formation, like, which I kind of enjoy, and it's kind of a rarity to see it, honestly, at this in the league right now, is like someone who doesn't just stick to one side. So
you don't really have enough depth at corner to not let him travel.
Right. You can't have number 23 or number 29 or whoever these guys are.
Yeah, it's
Mathis or whatever.
Fabian Moreau.
Yes.
Damari
you don't want
Mathis.
them on Diggs too much. So but they're 18th in coverage rate, man coverage rate. I think they're 19th in zone coverage rate. Against the Bills, I counted 7 reps of man and 17 reps of zone. So that was a little bit more zone heavy, but you're playing Diggs, so that kind of makes sense in Allen. And then in terms of middle of the field versus middle of the field close, I had it at an even 50-50. So it's they're throwing a lot of they're a balanced defense right now. It's not just one thing that they're doing.
And they have really struggled with getting pressure on the quarterback.
Yes.
That has been, I think, their biggest detriment, more so than, anything that you can call up coverage wise. If you can't get pressure, guys are going to get open. So I don't know if firing Vance Joseph would solve that.
No, I think you look at these last 3 games, they've done a good job versus the Chiefs. They've done a good job versus the Bills. They did a good job versus the Packers. There were a lot of turnovers in there, which isn't always the most consistent thing year to year, but still, you can't necessarily fire Vance Joseph because of, like, oh, you got too many turnovers. So I think he has, like, kind of put those fire Vance Joseph calls on maybe the back burner, or at least they're not as loud as they used to be, and we'll see how he closes out the season. And their biggest issue is the front. Like, Zach Allen is your premier pass rusher. Like, I don't think Singleton and Jewell are necessarily positive forces at linebacker.
Browning has started to come along a little bit.
Yeah, Browning is juice.
Browning is juice. But outside of that, it's Gahanna Lincoln High School legend and Ohio State legend, Jonathan Cooper, who we love, but, he's not Myles Garrett. They just don't have, outside of Surtain and Simmons, I just don't know if they really have the talent on defense to.
No, they don't.
You can't just line up in base and just afford to rush 4 and expect that to work. You're going to have to send some blitzes. You're going to have to jostle things up a little bit in your bag of tricks. And I think that they've done a better job of that recently.
Yeah, it's not a very talented defense, and that's the primary problem more than coaching right now. Maybe the first couple of weeks you could say it was coaching, but recently, like,
yes,
I think that they've done a pretty good job, and there's a little bit of everything in the scheme. Like I said, like, it's a very versatile, like, multiple defense right now, which is kind of what you're looking for. And then, what you're talking about, they're 22nd in pressure rate right now. Not good.
Yeah,
in there.
Not good. And it was probably worse early in the year too. I keep thinking about the quote, or what Sean McVay said at the beginning of the year. If this isn't a playoff team, I'm going to be disappointed. And maybe he still had his media cap on when he was saying that. But I thought he was completely insane to say that at that point in time. But at this point, they're not that far off, and I don't think their schedule is that unfavorable going forwards either. Coming off 3 straight wins. They have Minnesota, Cleveland, and Houston. Those are that's probably their toughest stretch. After that, it's the Chargers, the Lions, the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Raiders. It's not unthinkable that they could finish second in this division. And if the AFC North were to kind of cannibalize itself, you could potentially sneak in.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. The offense has been fine.
Yeah. They've asked Russ to do a little bit less, which I think was kind of our prediction coming into the year. He did have that one nasty throw.
That was a nasty throw.
To Sutton. Which some people are saying it's like the throw to Lockett that he had a few years ago. Some people are saying it's like the throw to Baldwin where he was reversing field.
It was pretty crazy. It's one of the top Russ highlights of all time. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're more of an under center team this year. I think they're top 5 in the rate that they're calling that, which is kind of what we expected going into it with all the additions that they made along the offensive line, all the power run blocking types. And it's worked okay. Like, they're not an embarrassingly bad offense like they were last year, and the defense is putting some things together. They don't look that bad. They look like kind of your normal middle of the road team. I feel like there's nothing about them in terms of their passing offense that makes me think that they're special, or really no unit on their team looks like elite. But you never know what can happen kind of in the mess of the middle. And I think my preseason projection for them was like 7-10. Like, maybe they'll surpass that by a game or two, or maybe they'll hit that. But worst team in the league kind of surprised me when the season started, and they're just not that. Like, they're just not that.
No. Yeah, I think the way they've been playing recently is much more indicative of the talent that they have than that 0-3 start where their defense was let up what was like 150 points.
Yeah, their defense is bad, but it shouldn't have been that bad.
It's not that bad. There are far worse defenses talent-wise. Okay, no, I don't have I was seeing if my record predictions were still saved on that playoff predictors.
None of us were too high on the Broncos.
I can't imagine that we were.
No, we probably had them around where I did at like 7 wins, and that's probably what they'll finish at, I think.
I don't know. I think they can. They definitely seem. I don't know if there's any way to like really gauge culture, but I do think Sean Payton has instilled some sort of a different vibe.
A different vibe.
They
are the 14 seed right now, by the way.
They're close.
they're the 14.
I know, but like the difference between the 14 seed and who would be the 10 seed or like the 9
the Bills,
seed.
The Colts, the Bengals, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Jets, the Broncos.
They're like one game behind all of those teams.
Yeah, it's true. It's just like, who are they going to beat? How about we play this game? Are the Broncos better than them? The Jets.
Maybe. I probably
the Jets defensively are so good.
I say yes, they are better than the Jets because they're more well-rounded. The Jets are just too much of a liability on offense.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Better than the Chargers.
Nah.
The Chargers defense is. You want to talk about a bad defense?
The Chargers defense is atrocious. Yes. It's really
I just
bad.
don't think if your reasoning for them being better than the Jets is because the Jets are a liability on offense, then I think you have to say they're better than the Chargers too because they're a liability on defense.
I think being a liability on offense is worse than being a liability on defense. So I'd take the Chargers over the Broncos.
I could see it. But is the Chargers offense that good to justify?
Herbert's back, baby.
Herbert's great. Keenan's been balling this year.
All right, the Raiders. I think they're better than the Raiders.
I think they're better than
the Bills going forward.
No, they're not.
I mean, they just beat them.
They're not better than Bills.
They're not better than Bills, I don't think.
A win is a win.
This ain't college. Head-to-head does not get taken into account like that. Colts. I feel pretty similarly, honestly.
Dude,
they're probably a little better.
We're having a mid-off here, dude. I mean, who's
and then they're not
Broncos or the Colts?
Who would you rather have, Russ or
fire.
Minshew? Russ or Minshew?
I'd probably take the Broncos over the Colts just because of that backup situation, and like both defenses are probably pretty similar. But and then there's the Bengals in the 8th seed, who they are definitely not better than. So it's going to be an up, and that's just teams out of the playoffs, and we've still identified some teams that are potentially better. So I think it's an uphill battle for them, but they are turning it around.
Yeah. They need more talent up front, and you're just not getting that in the last 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is. So I fear.
Well, we got 2 other teams in that kind of list to discuss. This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Prize Picks. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, we could go with the LaMelo Ball and Bryce Young combo. 10.5 assists plus touchdowns, something like that, maybe. Bet the under. Fuck, I can't say bet. I don't want to say, it's entries. Shit. Okay, I'm just going to stick to the script. Sorry, guys.
No, it's all good. That was funny.
Okay. This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Prize Picks. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LaMelo Ball plus Jonathan Mingo at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus reception, something like that. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. And Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with this injury insurance policy. So go to prizepicks.com/stayhot and use code STAYHOT for a first deposit match up to $100. That means if you put in 50, they'll give you another 50. You'll have 100 in your account. You could put up 99 and they'll give you another 99. It's just up to 100. So it's a great deal. Go to prizepicks.com/stayhot. Use code STAYHOT for that first deposit match. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Matt, let's talk about the Colts next.
I think they're pretty phony.
Phony?
I think they're pretty phony. They're a phony 5-5 team. Well, maybe I shouldn't say they're phony. I like a lot of their pieces. I think, and they've got pieces all over the board. There isn't one unit of the team that I think is like wildly strong, and one unit that I maybe think is like wildly weak. They've got some talent everywhere. I mean, their defensive line, DeForest Buckner was really strong. Theo, I cannot. I listened to it before this. He had 3 sacks.
We know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. He had 3 sacks against the Patriots. He had a really good game. And he did it in a mix of ways. They said I'm on a stunt, and he had some really nice, quickness and power, and he just long-armed a guy into Mac Jones. And then another time, they line him up inside, and he gets a really nice swim move off and gets inside super quick. Granted, all these things are against known statue Mac Jones and known turnstiles Patriots offensive linemen. But 3 sacks is 3 sacks. It doesn't come around every game. And that was after Pay went down. So they were kind of relying on him. I thought that was super impressive. The receivers moved me a decent amount, to be completely honest with you. Michael Pittman has been having a very solid year. And Josh, Downs has been fantastic.
Downs was a great pickup.
Yeah, he's very much, I don't want to say it's the little things because that gets overused. And it's really not a little thing to have a high football IQ and to help out your quarterback and to be where you need them to be and to understand what the defense is doing. But if that's how you want to describe it, then he's fantastic at the little things. And he's had big games because of it.
He's had big gains as well. Like he's been a threat down the field too.
Absolutely. I think they could still add a guy, or maybe if you really like Alec Pierce and what he has tools wise, he had a
Stay hot legend.
huge catch against the Patriots. And I honestly think their offensive line has not played overall that bad. I really don't. And I think Minshew probably has, I guess I didn't check this number. I think Minshew probably has more pressures that he turns into pressures and more sacks that he turns into sacks.
Yes.
And maybe that is going to skew their numbers. But I think overall, like the tackle play has been pretty solid. And there's some
They're
things
top
that you can,
10 in terms of the percentage that Minshew is actually under pressure.
Yeah, dude, like there's a lot of things working there. And the defense has done everything they possibly can the last couple of weeks. You know, 6 points against the Patriots. It's about as good as it gets. I know the run game was working a little well for the Patriots, but at the same time, Stewart was out. So, you know, that's your number one guy right there. Buckner's not as strong against the run, so as Stewart is. So that's going to hurt you. But it comes down to Minshew has just not been good the last couple of games. Now, they had some high-scoring games, albeit one which Minshew fumbled 3 times anyway and lost all 3 of them. But it's a little bit of everything. The pressure gets to him really quickly. And even when there isn't pressure, just a collapsing pocket gets to him really quickly. And he gets happy feet, and he's too quick to roll out of the pocket. And a lot of times that doesn't lead to him taking a shot and giving some of these big body receivers a chance. It leads to him checking it down. His average depth of target is something like 7.5 or whatever. It's really, really low. And when that's the case, and you know that you don't have to worry about Minshew testing you deep, because when he's turned the ball over a ton. He hasn't given his weapons a good shot of going out there and making a play. Then you can really key in on the run game. And while the Colts have had really good run game, you know, games where they've run all over people because Zach Moss has been solid for them, the offensive line's been good, and you got Jonathan Taylor back finally, it kind of doesn't matter because everyone's just going to, you know, play a bunch of people in the box, not give you honest looks and say, Minshew, you got to go beat me. And he can't.
Yeah. I feel like the story of this Colts season so far has been like they finally had a good draft.
Yes, that was me being negative about Gardner Minshew, who is not the long-term plan. It's funny, you look at the Colts and you're like, the pieces are there for somebody to step in and make some plays. Now I wonder who that could possibly be. Like the outlook is good, but in terms of like them this season going forward with Minshew, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I haven't checked their schedule going forward, but unless it's wildly easy or something, I'm really not moved. But I think they're in a great position, not only because they had a good draft and they've got guys contributing from, you know, all throughout that, but it seems like their strategy was really good there. And now they're in a position where there's no one position where you're like, well, you have to draft this because it's just such a disaster and you must do something. But there's also no one position where you're like, I can't possibly add somebody. And that gives you incredible flexibility to say, we're just going to take the best player available. We talk about those teams who sometimes it's like a guy will slip. Who's the type of teams who take the guys slipping? Hopefully that puts the Colts in a position to be that team, you know?
I'm looking at their schedule now. They play Tampa Bay this week. They're on a bye with this week. They play Tampa next week.
Next game, Tampa,
Yeah, next game, Tampa. Then Tennessee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Raiders, and they finish out with the Texans. There's, I think, 5 really winnable games in that.
Yeah, but I also think the Colts are a type of team not to go 5-0 in winnable games.
Right. They're not going to win all 5 of their winnable games.
I guess it could happen. You know, they've gotten to this point, but it's been a lot of single score against teams that are not good. Finding a way. And they deserve some respect for that. And I think my outlook on the Colts is very positive long term.
Yeah, this year doesn't really matter
this is
if they
gravy,
make the playoffs or not. Yeah.
The fact that you're looking even remotely competitive is fantastic.
The only problem with this year is that Richardson has been hurt so much that it's concerning.
Yeah.
If he was healthy, the Colts would be in such a good position, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be like the Texans. They'd be...
Yeah, I seriously think that could be true. I mean, Richardson, Who knows if he would put up the numbers Stroud puts up right now? But Richardson was looking quite
Richardson
nice.
wouldn't need to put up Stroud numbers for the Colts to be. I mean, again, they're 5-5 as it is with Minshew, and I think this was kind of, my whole thing coming into the year with the Colts is like their offensive line drastically underperformed their talent last year. They brought in a new offensive line coach. They're getting Jonathan
Soprano.
Yeah, Tony Soprano, man. I can't read.
He did it.
He did it, and he fixed them. They got Jonathan Taylor back.
Blaiden proved correct.
I mean, I guess I couldn't have seen Zach Moss being, good this year. But Matt, you're right. You're right. The receiving weapons are very legit. With Pittman, and I like Pierce. I like what Pierce adds. As a number 2 or a number 3, depending on where you feel like Downs, fits on that depth chart, and he's been a great addition. Yeah, I mean, they've just been. If they had Richardson, man, they'd be a lights out team, I think. So you have high hopes for next year.
They'd have more. They'd have
healthy.
more big playability, I feel like, and there'd be more of a downfield threat, and that would open up the run game, which would already be opened up by Richardson.
Yep.
It's a shame you can't see how this would all come together with a guy like Richardson. But I don't buy them this year, I'm afraid.
No.
But I don't think any Colts fan should be upset about that.
High-end talent.
I hope not.
Or superstar talent. But everyone looks like the right, like Steichen looks like the right guy.
Yep.
Richardson.
Yeah, they made all the right moves, and that's encouraging. That leaves us with, if you're anything like me, trying to get last minute tickets to see some of your favorite events, whether that be sports games, concerts, comedy shows, whatever, the best place to get those tickets is the Game Time app. Because whether you're trying to see Ohio State football, or maybe you're trying to get ready for the college football playoffs, you don't want to be scrambling, trying to find the best seats. You don't want to be unsure of where you're going to be sitting. You don't want to be getting gouged out of crazy prices. So the best place to get last minute tickets at the best price, where you can even see a preview of your seats before you even buy them, the best place to do all of that is Game Time. So use the code BlaidenK. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app or go to gametime.co and use the code BlaidenK to get $20 off your first purchase. You're already getting the best price. You're already getting last minute tickets. Why not take an extra $20 off? Make your life a little bit easier. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code BlaidenK. That's BLAIDENK to get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
My team.
The Raiders.
They're building Arizona State Pro over there in the desert. I know that
I can't believe we called Jack Jones. We called Jack Jones to the Raiders.
I can't believe there's enough ASU people in the league for me to say that, but it's happening.
Well, how many ASU guys do they have?
Yeah, I was going to say, how many Arizona State guys are there in the league?
Pierce and Jack Jones, but
they have 2.
But you can tell that that's their plan because Pierce recruited Jack Jones, and then as soon as he got the opportunity to be the head coach, he brings in the ASU guy. Jaden Daniels is next, and we're just bringing 2019 or 2020 ASU to the league. Eno Benjamin, is he still a free agent?
Eno Benjamin is on the Saints right now, I think.
Really? I had no idea.
Or that's what our lad says. I just looked up current Sun Devils in the NFL, and it's Frank Darby, Brian Thompson, Quinn Bailey, Mitchell Fraboni,
Lawrence Guy. Anyway, this is not an ASU naming session.
Yeah, it's about the Raiders, not
the big storyline with the Raiders right now is, I guess, Aiden O'Connell. I think that he is keeping his head above water, I guess, he's 2-0, so he hasn't been in a complete disaster. But to me, the number one thing that's been propelling the Raiders over these last 2 weeks has been the skill position players. Against the Jets, they were able to get the ball to the perimeter quickly via screens or tosses or jet sweeps or something like that. They really tried to take their line out of it and get those matchups out on the edge or use their speed to get to their perimeter as much as they could. And they've got some guys who can make plays with Josh Jacobs and even the seldomly used Hunter Renfrow had a screen for a first down out of TCU. I think number 3 Turner, is that his name? He's been a good kind of gadgety threat for them this year that they've actually used pretty well. So and Jacoby Myers has been a dog for them this year. So Mayer kind of has cemented himself. He was the starter for the entire Jets game. He mossed somebody, thought he held his own as a blocker. So the skill position talent, getting the ball out quickly to them was really the recipe for success against the Jets, and they were able to win a low-scoring one. But I don't know how much more they have in the tank than that, even though they're 5-5. The line, I marked them all very negatively versus the Jets, and it's a good front four, so that is, an excuse. But number 72
isn't good.
Number 72, their left tackle in Colton Miller's absence, like he can't really play. No one on the line is a positive starter to me. Number 66, Parham, hasn't quite developed like you'd expect. He might be the best guy who's out there, though. Their center, Jones, got beat way too much in this game. The right side's no better. And then O'Connell himself just doesn't have much escapability. And right now his feel in the pocket is quite bad. He's got a decent arm, and like his placement has honestly been okay. But right now, like, he drifted into pressure. He's bringing his arm back and almost getting stripped. He threw a pretty bad pick against Quarters where there was a dig, and that Quarters safety's right on the hash, like in a perfect position to drive on it, and he threw it anyway. So like, I don't know how much they can actually drop back and attack down the field. On the defensive side, they do have Jack Jones. They do have Nate Hobbs. They do have Marcus Peters and Amik Robertson. They do have Divine Diablo. MAXX CROSBY should be top 5 on everybody's Defensive Player of the Year ballot right now. Like, he's a tier 1 guy, I think. Malcolm Kuntz has kind of come out of the woodwork and been a decent piece for them. Tyree Wilson has been disappointing. They've got a couple pieces on defense to make you feel like they're not one of the worst units in the league, maybe like they were last year. But overall, I don't know how much they have going for them. And 5-5 is definitely a big overperform, unfortunately. I don't know how to feel about the future or the direction of the team with Antonio Pierce after beating the Jets and the Giants. I'm not totally sure that it's a sustainable formula that they've got going on there, despite their winning streak.
Yeah, the Raiders are a team that consistently struggle to hit in the draft. And when, you go year after year after year without any homegrown talent, you're not going to have very high upside.
Yeah. As far as team building goes, it really is as simple as that for them. I mean, I guess it's not. They've made some other questionable, like what they've done at quarterback and all of that. But ultimately, I agree.
The Davante Adams trade was one of the great lose-lose trades that I can remember. Just
because the team getting the first-round picks is the right herd. Not to have it the other way around, but yeah, because the team that went all in wasn't in a position to do so, and the Packers immediately needed that receiver replacement and didn't draft it.
Yeah, I cannot say either side would do that again. Maybe the Raiders would, just because you're getting Davante Adams, and Davante had a pretty good game against the Jets. He had a pretty insane one-handed catch. All the positive plays in the drop back passing attack happened because O'Connell was kind of locked on Davante the whole time, and that's also how the pick happened. So maybe you do it again just because like you'd have a good wide receiver and you do other things differently. But still, like he hasn't really contributed to winning football at all, which was not the goal. And for the Packers, like how nice would it be to have Devontae Adams right now? Like even if you had Devontae Adams instead of Christian Watson, I said this last week, like Marvin Harrison replacing Christian Watson would probably net them a couple more wins. Devontae Adams, like you're almost positive, like no projection needed. Like you'd be in a way better situation for your young quarterback. So just not a good trade for either side at all.
No, it has not been.
Or like last year, last year, I'm 100% confident they make the playoffs with Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
they would not have gotten off to the start that they did if Rodgers had Adams. It would have been
it's not necessarily that they don't even have playmakers. It's that it's the offense is just hard to run with what they've got now at receiver and in general, and getting things to be where they need to be at that time. I 100% agree.
Do you think if they still had Adams, they would also still have Rodgers?
No, not. It's kind of tough to say. Because last year probably would have gone way better.
Right.
And maybe they wouldn't have traded Rodgers. I think it's possible, but I think they knew that they wanted Love to get a shot. And I just don't think Adams was very interested in playing with a bad quarterback. And unfortunately for him, the Carr was his college friend coming off some good seasons under Gruden, but that just never materialized into a good quarterback situation. So he's in a situation where like he's obviously pretty frustrated. But MAXX Crosby, you'll always have him, Raiders fans, and that guy's a god. I talked last episode about the endurance of Josh Dobbs and how he could win a 5K. I forgot about MAXX Crosby because he plays 100% of the snaps all the time, and like his motor is crazy. And his impact is crazy. So I still think Myles Garrett is Defensive Player of the Year. But in terms of edges, like Crosby might be second on that list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All the numbers, he's right up there with Garrett and Watt.
Yeah, with the volume stats, he's even ahead of those guys because he plays. So he's never off the field. So like, pressures, that
might be his case if you want to pitch a defensive MVP candidate, Crosby.
Seriously, if there was defensive MVP, like it would be Crosby. I don't think he's as good as Garrett quite, but damn, he's.
Garrett.
His numbers compared to everybody else on the defense are just hilarious.
Yeah, we love MAXX Crosby, and we saw him at Raiders camp. He's huge, bro.
We did see him at Raiders camp. My overall thought on the Raiders is that right now I'm not bought into Pierce as a long-term guy after 2 wins against bad teams. I just think hiring the interim is often not the move. And
how often does that happen?
I don't know how often it happens, but it doesn't work when it does. I know that those numbers suggest. The last time I can remember it happening was Freddie Kitchens.
Oh. Don't remind me, man.
That didn't go well. I just think like you kind of get that jolt, and then like I just don't know. Antonio Pierce's history suggests like he's going to be a great head coach in the NFL. I don't know though. I guess, but. I think they should probably still go in a different direction at coach, quarterback, maybe trade Devontae Adams after the season. Like, if you could get him out of there.
That's about as hard reset as it goes.
I think that it's probably what is needed more than like the Aiden O'Connell Pierce pairing. I'd rather go with literally anything, not literally anything else, but most other options. I think cleared that one to me, despite the wins. That was my main takeaway watching the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in need of a head coach, Ben Johnson is probably going to be up for a head coaching job.
Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald.
Yep. Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. And get ready for some football and some fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
So that's all I got on the Raiders, which means it's time to transition to our last segment of the day, the Stay Hot Locks, presented by Prize Picks. The way this works is we all draft teams that we think are going to win on Sunday or Thursday or Monday. And we can go and draft as many as we want. We can fold and tap out whenever we want. And if we get all of our picks right, we get that amount of points. And then there's also a rule where we can lock against each other. And if you challenge someone's lock, it's worth 2. I lost last week because I was feeling good about the Bengals as a Super Bowl contender. And I picked them to win against the Texans, as hot as the Texans were. And they lost. And then Matt lost because he locked the Bills over the Broncos, which means, Blaiden, you are our only winner.
I tied Matt. We're both tied
and you're
at
tied
8.
for first. And I have 6, correct? Or
You have
5?
6. You have 6.
Okay.
So still a very close Stay Hot Locks this year. Again, usually at this point, someone's pulled away, but not this year. So I think I'll probably just give myself the first pick. I think that's the safe bet. And speaking of safe bets, I will pick the Cowboys over the Panthers.
Yep. Doesn't get much safer than that.
So
can you imagine how wild it would be if the Panthers won that game?
Oh, it would be insane.
They have it as like a 10-point spread. I think that's psychotic, man.
I mean, it's in Charlotte. So
the Panthers will defend home turf.
That's the only reason it's not like a 15-point spread is because it's home for the Panthers.
I don't care, man. And Dak has been cooking recently. Dak has been on
Dak
fire.
has been the best quarterback in the league over the last month.
Dude,
Dak
he has
MVP
been ridiculous.
Narratives. If we get another Dak masterclass this week, he might be the MVP front runner.
I feel like the Panthers... I don't know, man. He might be just because it's going to be a primetime game.
Right, it'll be a primetime game, and then no, it won't.
It's not a primetime game.
No,
they're not.
Oh,
doing
I thought it was
that
the Thursday. Oh no, I thought it was a. Oh, my bad.
No, this isn't the primetime game. But
I just looked at it and it just seemed like a Thursday night game to me. But it's. I mean,
this to me feels like a 400-yard, 3-touchdown performance for Dak, no interceptions. That'll put him at 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, only 6 picks.
Matt, you're up next. I agree, Blaiden.
I can't disagree my own personal self. Give me Detroit over those pesky Bears. I think Detroit's a lot better than the Bears, and I think if they were playing pretty much any other team outside of the Panthers, they would have lost Thursday night. And I didn't get to talk about it, but I think Pinheiro shrugging his shoulders after missing a potential game-tying field goal was the funniest thing to happen in the NFL season this year.
He was like, there's no way.
He did not care.
It wasn't even like that long of a field goal either. It was like not 65 or some record. He's like, yeah, gave it my best.
But it would have been longer than any kick he's made to that point.
Was it?
So,
I thought it was like a 58-yarder, and he's like, well, I can't. I'm like, I would want my kicker to show a little bit more heart if it's an under 60-yard field goal. It was pretty funny, though.
It was.
So that's, that's my pick.
Not Matt. Theo, you have the swing here.
I'm going to bet against Tommy DeVito. I'm going to pick the Commanders.
Very valid. Very valid. That offense looked pretty rough.
Yes, it did.
And the Commanders can put up points at least. You know, they can air the ball out. So I feel like they can get something going.
Who else is playing? The Colts are on a bye.
49ers versus Tampa's a big spread. Miami
Yeah.
versus Vegas is a big spread.
Yeah, I'll take
Those are-
the Dolphins over the Raiders.
And I'll take the Niners over Tampa Bay, and I'll be out.
The only other team that I'm thinking about is maybe the Chargers over the Packers.
I think that'd be a pretty
But I think
reasonable
that's
pick,
risky.
but I don't know if I trust the Chargers defense.
I don't. I think that's risky. So I think I'll just be done. I'll just do the Cowboys.
Matt?
Nah, I'm out.
I'm going to take the Bills over the Jets.
All right.
Fair enough.
I've got some
enough.
ground to make up.
You got some ground to make up. That's not
You
a
do.
bad
I
one.
think I think the Jets. I mean, they just
I don't
lost to
ha-
the
I don't have
Raiders,
to.
and I think the Bills are better than the. I know that they lost in a kind of a freakish way, but it is the interim it's an interim coach. They're not losing.
Interim offensive coordinator. Does
Still
the
counts.
interim rule apply to assistants?
When they're as important as Ken Dorsey was, I think it does.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's the Stay Hot Locks, and that is another episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back to recap week 11. We're on to week 11 now of the NFL season. We'll be back, of course, to recap that Monday morning. But until then, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on I forgot to ask you two before we started, how was your day? So we'll do that at the end here.
I'm glad you didn't ask me how my day was at the beginning because I have nothing to report. Honestly,
Really?
I know not a single thing.
Wow.
I went on Nerd Session. I had a good time with those fellas, and I'm assuming that podcast will be coming out soon. So
Nice.
True.
go listen to that now. Carson and
I was
Nerds.
on
Two classics, two W's, I would say. So it was
Wow.
It was a good
Wogan
time.
and Warson.
There we go.
Woken and Morrison. I was on Unsportsmanlike Conduct with Gab. We talked about the MVP race a little bit.
There you go.
I will be on Nerd Session on Friday, so
Hey, weren't you
Fuck
on
that.
Nerd Sesh like?
I haven't been on
Couple
Nerd
weeks
Session
ago?
in a minute.
Or was
So,
that?
no.
I thought one of you had been on Nerd.
I was
Sesh
on Charles
recently.
McDonald's podcast recently.
Okay.
But
Yeah, and I saw Logan was in our live stream comments
yes.
during the Monday Night Football game. But okay, that is everything. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.